how Bay Area hosts can prepare for FIFA travelers. As we know, FIFA is just about to kick off, which is very exciting, and there will be a lot of visitors coming from not only the US, but all over the world. And this is a very special event because we had Super Bowl come, but that was only one event, right? It was one sports game, whereas FIFA, there's multiple events over the course of a little bit more than 2 weeks. So there's a great opportunity to prepare your listing to welcome travelers and to hopefully make a little bit more revenue. So I'll be walking you through practical things that you can do this week, whether it's today, tomorrow, or this weekend, to prepare your property and improve your guest experience and really position yourself so that you can have stronger reviews and overall get more visibility and higher revenue. So if you're brand new to hosting, this is a good opportunity, or if you're just considering hosting, or even a host who's done it for many years, I believe that you will be able to take something out of this short meeting. So let's start digging in. I'll share a little bit about myself. My name's Laura Kreuger, and I'm the founder and executive director of Asset Locale Property Management Company. And I've been hosting for more than 12 years. I started hosting in a unit actually behind my house. I had a little cottage in my backyard, and I used to have it as a long-term rental. But way back when, before most people even knew Airbnb existed, I switched it to short-term rental. And then over the years, I grew purchasing more properties, and now I manage for others as well. So I manage my properties along with other owners' properties. So I am a co-host on Airbnb, but we do have a property management company, so licensed and insured, and I'm a real estate broker in California. So I am also one of two community leaders. So I don't know if you're here today based on an email that you got because you already host yourself, or if you're part of our group. We do have an Airbnb host community. And we just switched over from our Facebook group, and I think we had almost 550 members, and we're in a transition period now. So if you haven't joined our new group, I would encourage you to do it because you'll get a lot of good information, just like we're talking today. Last month, we had someone coming on talking about, tax strategies. We've had cleaners. There's a lot of really great information. And then we do get together in person, usually once a year, but it could be more often. So definitely join that group if you haven't. And it's a wonderful way to learn from each other. Okay, well, let's get started. So when large events come to the area, most hosts are focusing specifically on their nightly rate and raising their nightly rate to be able to, increase their revenue, which is great. That's a great opportunity when you have events such as FIFA come. But oftentimes the guest experience is what gets overlooked. So you're probably proactive with managing your calendar, proactive with organizing your pricing, whether you do that manually or you have a pricing tool such as Price Labs. But what you really have to focus on is the whole picture. So hosts who receive the strongest reviews during these busy travel periods are usually the ones who have their operations and their systems dialed in. So there's 5 areas that I think you can really focus on in order to get better reviews. So, and also more bookings. And this can be true whether it's for FIFA or for other events or just, throughout the year. These are good best practices. So you want to make sure that your listing photos, first of all, are professional. So if you have taken photos from your listing yourself or on your phone, I would highly recommend hiring a professional photographer. If you need a recommendation, I'm happy to recommend who takes all of my photography. I think he does a really wonderful job. It's really important for guests to see what your listing looks like and that you have enough photos so that they can see all areas of your listing, right? Maybe not just one photo of a bathroom, but more than one. So you can see inside the shower, right? Or more than one photo of the yard. All of those things really help. And if you have a photographer who specializes in Airbnb or short-term rentals, they're going to know what guests are looking for because guests are going to be booking your listing based on what the photos look like. That also means that hopefully you don't have outdated photos that you already got booked for. So, meaning that you have a FIFA booking or other guests coming this summer that booked based on photos that are outdated, meaning you updated the furnishings or you've changed some things. When you do that, you do want to update the photos as quickly as possible. So, double check your photos and double check how you're arranging your photos on Airbnb, because the last couple years they've definitely changed how your listing shows up, and you want to make sure that your best photos are being highlighted and there's clear descriptions, especially if you have multiple bedrooms. Is this the primary bedroom? Is this a first floor bedroom? All of those things really help, and you're going to set a clear expectation for guests who are coming to stay. No one wants to book something and then have it not look like the photos. Additionally, you want to check on your listing description. A lot of times, hosts will set up their property one time, and it could have been years ago, and then not look at it again. You definitely want to check your listing description to see if anything has changed. And also, based on feedback that you've received from guests, what are they looking for? A lot of international travelers that come in for events such as FIFA are really interested in using public transportation. In this area, we don't have a ton of public transportation, and you may not use public transportation consistently, but in other areas of the world, people are very accustomed to public transportation, so they want to use it. So making sure that you're saying, how close are you to the San Jose airport? I usually put number of miles and approximate drive time without traffic. How far are you from San Francisco airport or Oakland? And then how close is the closest bus stop or train station? All of that information is really good. And also make sure for FIFA that you have it clarified how long it's going to take the guests to get to Levi Stadium from your listing. Another thing that you should check, not just before FIFA, but on an ongoing basis, is your amenities. So your amenities, Airbnb has many different options that you can boxes really that you can check for your amenities, and they do update this periodically. So this is a good thing if you're a host to, put a reminder maybe once every 2 months or so to go through and see, okay, do they have some new amenities that perhaps they didn't have before that I do have? Or did I miss something, right? Do I provide hangers, but I'm not saying that I do? Do I have heat in my listing? Everyone should have heat, but believe it or not, that is an option on Airbnb. You want to check that box. I will say that most travelers are looking for things like the Wi-Fi speed, which you can add to your listing. If you open up the Airbnb app, they have a way that you can verify your Wi-Fi speed. I would highly recommend that. They're looking for parking and description about parking. Is it free parking? Is there free street parking? Is it on property? All of those ideas. And then other things such as like laundry inside the unit, outside the unit, or would there be a laundromat? All of those things really set proper expectations, and you don't want a guest checking in thinking that you have an amenity and you don't. You also don't want to lose a potential guest because your amenities aren't properly highlighted. And then the last thing I would say is check your calendar settings. You may have a minimum night stay, and perhaps you usually only accept guests that are staying for 4 days or 3 days. And you might have two bookings, a 3-day booking, 2 days in between, and another 3-day booking. Well, those 2 days in between are what I call orphan nights. And if you have a 3-night minimum, Airbnb will automatically block those so you can't get booked. You might want that, but for events such as FIFA, you may not. You might be more interested in opening it up and allowing a guest to stay for a 2-night minimum. So check your calendar and make sure that there aren't nights that you want to get booked, but because of your minimums or your settings, they're not available. I see this happen pretty often. Okay, moving on. Okay. Audit your check-in experience. This is really, really key because once a guest decides to book your stay, their first interaction is likely going to be from your welcome message. But when they are getting to the property, it's really important to make the check-in process as seamless as possible. If you can imagine you're an international traveler, maybe you're coming from Germany, you've been on a 14-hour flight, it might be 11 o'clock at night, it could be very dark. If it takes you about 20 minutes to check into your listing, that doesn't create a great first experience. So, what can you do as a host? Personally, you can go through and act like a guest and check your check-in instructions. A lot of guests, especially older guests, will print out your check-in instructions through Airbnb, and many hosts don't consistently update those. So Airbnb gives you the opportunity that you can take photos and make descriptions to do a step-by-step check-in. I think that's a great thing to do from the street because you may have a home that the front door is very visible, but you might also have something like I have, like a cottage in the backyard or in a condo community that it's really difficult to find. So those step-by-step instructions are extremely important. I take it one step further and I use my iPhone and I will stand at the street and I will record a video from the street walking to the door of the unit, also opening up the lockbox because or the key code on the door because every key code, every lockbox is different if you have self check-in, and showing them how to actually get into the unit. Of course, you want to make sure that the code on your video is not going to be the ongoing code, but you can easily set that up and adjust it. And what I do is I take that video, I upload it to YouTube, and then I copy the message or the link and I put it in my check-in message. And it will go through because you can share links once a guest has been confirmed. This has helped me so much for check-ins because people are able to look at a video, click on it, that walks them in. It makes it very simple and very easy. But do check your check-in instructions because some guests are going to print those out. Others potentially would use a video. And then I would say, additionally, make sure that you're checking the link that Airbnb is sharing as far as maps go. Because the map, it might be through Apple Map, it might be through Google. I have a certain property that the map actually drops guests off at the end of the block. So when they arrive, if they're using the GPS, it's dropping them 5 or 6 houses down and they're very confused. So if you can be proactive and you know that the map link is going to drop a guest off down the street, you can just put a note there. Hey, that the address is this. Here's a photo. If you're using the map through Airbnb, it's going to drop you off at the end of the block. All of that proactive notes and communication really makes the check-in experience go a lot smoother. And all of a sudden, you have a guest who can get into the property easily, especially if they're tired or exhausted, and you're already providing a really good experience for them. All right, this also goes to parking. And then it also could be additional items such as like your Wi-Fi information or laundry, how to use the laundry or how to use different amenities. So make sure you're not just looking at check-in and how the guest is going to get into the property, but what happens once they're inside and what would they potentially need. So this is really one of the most common areas that we audit when we're helping a property owner improve their performance at Asset Locale. We want to check of course, the check-in messages, but we want to check and make sure that the check-in experience is really seamless and really, really, really clear because it can help take you from, lower reviews to 5-star reviews. So I would encourage you to do that. Okay, moving forward, complete a property readiness walkthrough. This is kind of the boring stuff that isn't always so much fun, no different than the check-in messages, but it really saves you from emergencies, and especially when guests are coming from, different areas all over the world, the communication can be difficult. So do a readiness walkthrough. And this is a great thing to do along with auditing your check-in message and perhaps shooting a video. Those things really help. You can set maybe 30 minutes aside to do this for your property. So I would recommend walking the property exactly like a guest would. So first you're walking in, making sure that they get into the property easily. Then when they're in the property, most of the time people are looking for the Wi-Fi really quickly. So can you check and make sure your Wi-Fi information is correct on the confirmation? And also, do you have it posted somewhere in the house? And then check the Wi-Fi. Double check to make sure in all the rooms of the house you're getting good quality Wi-Fi. Again, you can do the speed test through the Airbnb app. And then you're going to want to be Checking smoke detectors, CO detectors. I would just replace the batteries now because you never know when those are going to start chirping, but it always seems to happen at 2 in the morning. And when a guest has just arrived, it can be really frustrating. I would also check your fire extinguishers, make sure that they're not out of date and make sure that they're in a visible location, in the kitchen, or if you have a patio with a barbecue, that those are all also there. And then test all of the door codes. Again, same would be true for batteries. If you have a smart lock, you don't want a guest to not be able to get in. And then go through and check, your TVs. I know this sounds silly, but a lot of times guests will turn on the TV and it's not properly connected. If you have cable, make sure those are synced. If you're just doing streaming services, make sure that that is set up like through your smart TV so that the Wi-Fi is connected. All of these little items add up and they really change the guest experience. So go through, do these little checks and go through your property and see, do I often get questions how to use the TV? Okay, could I make a short video on my phone, upload it to YouTube, save that, and create a QR code? A lot of times in our units or when we're managing for others, we will shoot a short video on how to use the dishwasher, if that's a question that we consistently get, or how to use the laundry, how to use the TV. Then we can upload it, we make a QR code, we put it in a cute picture frame, and we can hang it on the wall near wherever the item is. Or sometimes you can make a sticker. That will take a little bit longer, but start thinking about these things because if you've hosted for some time, you probably notice over time, you're getting the same questions. If we're getting a question 2 times from 2 different guests, that's telling me that there's probably more than 4 guests that have had that question, but only a couple of them are reaching out. And I want to make sure as a good quality host and manager that I'm being proactive because it's a lot more convenient for me to answer the question before it even comes up than for a guest to reach out. Potentially there will be some time that it'll take to respond and that can create frustration. So I would say you'd be pretty surprised how many negative reviews come from simple thing like dead batteries or the Wi-Fi not being correct. So you really want to identify those issues before the guests do, and that really creates credibility for you as a host. So we use at Asset Locale, we use standardized readiness checklists that we're going to go through for each property because whether your property is a studio or a 5-bedroom, there is a lot of basics that are the same. And it really helps us make sure that we're not missing items for any of our properties as we're doing routine checks, but definitely before FIFA and larger events. Okay, let's see. International travelers, they often stay a little bit longer. And so maybe your minimum night stay is 2 or 3 nights, but people are staying for a week. I would really have you, during your walkthrough, make sure that you're taking notes and checking on a deep clean for your property. A lot of times when cleaners come in and do turnover cleans for Airbnb, they're not removing all of the dishes from the cabinet. They're not taking all the silverware out. They're not wiping down all of the light fixtures. For most of our properties, we do a deep clean about twice a year, but that does depend on what the occupancy is. So it could be a little bit more. I would highly suggest before events like FIFA, you schedule those deep cleans with your cleaners, but be really specific with them what you want them to do in those deep cleans, because nothing is worse than checking in and having the property not be clean. So this can include the floors, baseboards. I really focus a lot on the kitchen because it seems like you'll notice also that certain kitchen utensils walk away. Seems like spoons get lost often, or perhaps you have a can opener or something and it might still be in the kitchen, but it's broken. It's a good idea to go through and check on those things. And then make sure that you have enough of a stock for things like paper towels, toilet paper, trash bags, all of that stuff. We also like to give all of our guests a little bit of cleaning surprise. Some of them like to have a broom and dustpan or even a vacuum and a little bit of all-purpose cleaner. I would not put any sort of cleaning supplies under the kitchen sink because that can be dangerous for young children, but in the laundry room or on a higher shelf, that's a good way to save those. So go through it and just check and work with your cleaner. And so if you haven't had a deep clean ever, or if you haven't in a while, I would highly suggest that you go in because the once guests check in, that's a hurdle, but then next to that, the cleaning can really be a hurdle. And I would make sure that your cleaners have what they need. A lot of times we see that cleaners will have different crews and they will just be setting up a unit and they're not always great about communicating. Oh, we had stains on this towel. We had to dispose of it and now we're down a couple kitchen towels. Those are things that are really good if you're doing these kind of quality control checklists or walkthroughs. You find those out and then you build a stronger relationship with your cleaner and they're more attentive to communicating with you. All righty. Moving forward. Yeah, create a FIFA-friendly guest experience. Yeah, this is where hosts can really shine and differentiate. So I would say things like preparing your listing, that's number one, that's kind of background. Then check-in message, again, all of that information, making sure it's set up, making sure that the guests can check in well. Again, that's good background, making sure your unit is polished. But creating this FIFA friendly guest experience is what really will take your reviews even higher, and it's going to set you out and not be a standard host. So most FIFA travelers are going to be visiting the Bay Area for the first time, and they don't know, what we have to offer here. And some of them might be choosing Airbnb because of convenience for the location, for the price, or the flexibility of being able to have their whole family together. But sometimes people are booking an Airbnb because they want to be in our community. And so it's really great if you can help give them some local guidance. And this is a wonderful way for you to support local small businesses. I know close to my house, we have a local coffee shop, and I always love recommending guests there. And they typically love that much more than just going to Starbucks, right? They're here, they would like to have some local coffee, maybe a delicious pastry, and the environment is a lot different. So we actually have a one-page laminated sheet for each of our properties, and we do this when we're managing for others. And we'll say, okay, what's a local grocery store that's close by, a local coffee shop, and even one or two, things to do that are close to our property. Maybe there's a park close by, there's all sorts of things. And you can easily put that on one sheet. We laminate it so that we can use it over and over again. For FIFA, you could make a one sheet probably very easily with AI. Have your address, say, what should I recommend? You could get a nice graphic. And this would be a wonderful way for you to welcome guests and to have it be very friendly. Bonus points if you actually write a little note or card to them and have potentially even a welcome basket. But you don't have to do all of that. You could just make a FIFA friendly guide. And I would include transportation information, as we already had talked about on your listing, but here as well. And then one thing that I think many hosts don't think about is that emergency contact information. Airbnb has this recommendation and have had it for years, but I notice when we're onboarding new properties from existing hosts that no longer want to manage anymore, very few have an emergency contact card. Well, if you come from an international destination, 911 is likely not your emergency phone. So guests need to know in the case of an emergency, what should they do? Same would be true for local urgent care or hospital. All of those things are really important. And so we actually will make a laminated sign and we put it somewhere that's visible. So it could be, close to the entryway. It could be in the kitchen area, somewhere that they see. And it can look nice. It doesn't have to be red and, and bold, but at least they will see it when they check in. And in the event they had a problem, we want to make sure that they have that support. So if you would like an example of the welcome guides that we have in our property, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll actually put my email in the chat. And at the end, I'm going to have my contact information up, but I would be happy to show you an example of one of ours, and really fun and easy to do, not just for FIFA, but all year around. Okay, let's see. Here we go. So yeah, handling last minute bookings. I know this can be really challenging if you're a host and you're managing for yourself. A lot of this comes comes to play with your team that you have built out. But for large events, I've noticed there's quite a bit of last minute bookings. And a lot of times this is for the support staff. So, meaning fans might plan their stay months and months in advance. But if you're a support staff for the team or for media, you might get an assignment a couple days before or one day before. So I have seen quite a few last minute bookings, or heaven forbid somebody checks into a unit that has a problem. I've seen that happen as well. So if you're open to it and if you plan ahead, you can adjust your calendar so you're able to welcome these last minute guests. But you do really want to make sure that you have a system in place, that you've communicated with your cleaners, that they know that you're going to be open for instant book for last minute, and you need to have all of your check-in dialed in, because sometimes we'll get someone who books at 11 p.m. checking in an hour, right? Every host has a different comfort level for that, and it can depend on the type of listing you have. But if you're open to it, this can be a way that you can make some additional revenue, but you never want a guest checking into a unit that's not clean or has a problem. But I would definitely talk as well to your cleaners to make sure that they have the capacity should you get last minute bookings before you open up your calendar. That's quite important. So, all righty. And yeah, what can we learn from the World Cup, FIFA? I mean, we also had Super Bowl this year and we had some basketball games as well. So this has been a great time for Silicon Valley and the Bay Area. But I would say whether it's FIFA or these other events, the biggest takeaway is that the preparation starts long before the event arrives, right? The calendar was opened up and we saw who was going to be playing in the area way back in December. So most hosts were already strategizing their nightly rate, blocking their calendar out and adjusting it, because based on, what teams were coming, that changes demands. So you're already thinking about that, more than 6 months in advance. But then also thinking about how you're positioning your listing with those listing photos, as well as communicating local transit. It's hosts who benefit the most are the ones that are consistently improving their properties, but also being very proactive. And the work that you do to prepare your property for an event such as FIFA is something that's going to keep paying dividends over the course of your hosting, right? Like if you get professional photography, that's going to last you even after FIFA leaves. If you work on improving your systems and your processes, those are going to continue as well, um, even after FIFA is gone. So that really helps. It really helps build more positive reviews. It also helps take some of the strain off of you as a host, especially if you're hosting on your own. I know I hosted multiple listings by myself for many years, and boy, it's a lot of work juggling all of those things. I'm fortunate now to have a team that manages my listings alongside of client listings, but it's a lot of work to manage a property well. But those systems and processes really help, and it can help you longer term. So for many owners, this is the right time to just evaluate, take a look at their property. Also a good time to see, is self-management working well for you, and how does it work with your time constraints? I know most people talk about real estate being more of a passive investment, but I can say, yeah, if you're a short-term rental host, there's nothing passive about it. There's a lot of work with guest communication and ongoing management of the property. So you have to be cognizant of that, and it can become a full-time job very quickly. So feel free to reach out though if you have questions or if you're interested in learning more. And I will go to Q&A. I think that we have one question here from Ella. Yeah, you usually host long-term guests, so the cleaning fee is for deep cleaning. How do you lower the cleaning fee for short terms, like 2 days, just for the FIFA period? I do believe there's a setting actually on Airbnb. This is something that they put into place, I want to say last year. And I think it's actually the inverse of what your question is, meaning that your base cleaning fee would be for shorter stays, but they give you an option that if a guest stay for example, more than 30 nights, that you could charge a higher cleaning fee. But there is a setting on Airbnb that you can adjust the cleaning fee based on the length of stay. Also, I'm similar to you, Ella, in that more than 80% of my stays in Silicon Valley are more than 30 nights. Most of them are more than 90 nights. So I have a lot of extended stay properties. That's what I call them. And to be honest, we charge what I would say is a reasonable cleaning fee. And then sometimes we'll look at what the cleaner is charging. Let's say hypothetically they're charging $200 for a standard cleaning of a unit. And then a deep cleaning, maybe that's 450 or something along those lines. We may make the standard cleaning fee charged to a guest slightly more, maybe 325 or something like that, and then, kind of pick up that extra amount so that then we can do the twice a year deep cleaning. But for longer stays, yeah, you have to be really careful about that cleaning because if guests are staying a long time, you may need to do that deep cleaning every time, like you're saying, between guests. Alrighty. Well, I will go one more here. This is my email and that's my phone number. You're welcome to reach out. Like I said, you can text me, you can give me a call. I'm not great about answering my phone, I'll be honest. I'm much better with text message. And if you're interested in learning more about property management or how we could support you with your listing, you're welcome to scan the QR code. But I hope you'll also consider just joining our community of local hosts who support each other and share information. So thank you so much for coming. And I hope you have a really great rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you.